Welcome, everyone, to ICSS Sunday Morning Marxist Forum. My name is Alan Miller, and I'm a member of the program committee for ICSS Sunday Morning Sessions. We're based in Oakland, California, in the San Francisco Bay, USA, and our weekly programs are online via Zoom every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time. You can sign up at our website, icssmarks.org, to receive weekly announcements by email for our Sunday sessions. You can also view videos of past sessions, and send us a message using our contract form on our website, which is again icssmarks.org. We want to call your attention to our donation icon on our homepage and our donation page itself, where you can make a donation to support our programs. Today's session is on crisis and resistance in America today, and the title couldn't be more appropriate. We intend to have a lively and informative group discussion today. I'll start with a very brief introduction, followed by short presentations by several program committee members to get the discussion going. Afterward, everyone is welcome to join in by expressing your thoughts and opinions or by simply asking questions to speakers or the group. So let's get started. And to do so, let me give a little bit of background. Let's talk a little bit about what's actually going on in the US today. We have US and Customs, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, ICE agents, grabbing hardworking, innocent people off the streets of cities across the country. Millions of people are being stripped of their access to health care. Tax cuts are transferring millions of dollars from the poor to the wealthy. People are being deported for simply speaking out against the war and genocide in Gaza. I mean, let's have a reality check. Bigger context. Working people are taking on record levels of debt to pay their medical bills and just to survive. Rents are rising. Record numbers of people are going homeless. We have food insecurity. We have collapse in the funding for public education and infrastructure repair. Record numbers of people are working multiple part-time, insecure, low-paying jobs with no hope for the future. All the while, we're headed towards a recession that could be worse than the 2008 financial and economic crisis. And all the while, billions of dollars are flowing to Israel to support genocidal wars in Gaza, Palestine, and the bombing of Iran. More billions are going to support a fruitless, destructive, and extremely dangerous war in Ukraine. We have a record $1 trillion military budget lining the pockets of military contractors such as Lockheed, Raytheon, and General Dynamics, also supporting military bases worldwide and a future war with China. What's to be done about all of this? Well, one thing for sure is that there's a rising tide of resistance in this country. Hundreds of thousands have protested the ICE raids and deportations, the cuts in social programs, and rising political repression. The Democrats and the Republicans are offering no way out of the crisis. The Republicans are the bad cops, the Democrats are the good cops. They work together to keep the political status quo in place. What we want to have now is a discussion about what is going on and what should be done about it. What is to be done about it. We're going to start with some short presentations by our program committee members to get the discussion growing, followed by a discussion where you, the participants, should bring forward your ideas on these questions, and let's have a lively discussion about the political situation, the crisis in the US today, and what is to be done. So I'm going to start with Raj, if you would unmute yourself, and please go ahead and say your speak.
Okay, so how the resistance is to be organized is not something I will be able to speak very effectively. But what I want to say is capitalism today in the United States looks more and more like monarchism, raw power of the state and raw power of the oligarchic handful of oligarchic capitalist owners, financial elites, capitalists of different types. Now, Trump does not hide, unlike Biden, who used to hide it behind the phrase of democracy, equality, and all that. Trump is very straightforward. And but even Biden, when it came to his son, did not hide. He came declared very proudly how he got the attorney general who was investigating Burisma, where his son was on the board of governors. Uh, they got him fired within 2 hours before he left Ukraine. So this increasingly from 1960 to now, the system seems more and more oligarchic and corrupt. In other words, to the working people, it is clear it's not about them, which was the hidden message behind you will get benefits as long as we can rule the world. And the rule the world, we have a right because we are bringing good things to those people, kind of like the British used to say they were bringing civilization to the people who don't have civilization. And they said they're bringing it to the colonies. So, so it is what capitalism looks like when it reaches the stage of imperialism. That word is what Lenin's essay as title is, Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. And, and he picked that word because it begins to mimic old type of monarchical rule, which is very uncontrolled by anything other than outside powers, great powers, uh, military powers, and economic powers. So many comrades today think imperialism is a stage of capitalism when countries which have the largest capitalist economies and where capitalists have been in control of society for a long time, such as the US today, are all powerful and can do what they want. However, I think they are mistaken. The economic crisis of US today, which is why we are seeing all this, what Trump has brought about by blaming the immigrants for the problem, while this is a way to distract attention from what the banditry of the oligarchy is doing right now, because they make a lot of profits in China and elsewhere, and they don't want to share enough of that profit with the working class. And the working class simply doesn't have well-paying jobs because the industry's moved out. Under this crisis, they are trying to blame the immigrants, the hapless, the poorest of the poor, who actually add a lot of value because they provide services at relatively low wages. And so if you get rid of them, it is not going to help anybody in the classes above that, except the richest can, of course, always afford it. And so it is looking more and more like a police state, although it's not a police state, but what Alan described is, but it is founded, this whole situation is founded in an economic crisis of capitalism, which is global, but it is much more advanced in terms of rottenness uh, in the US and in Europe, okay, as compared to 25 years back. Small businesses are in crisis. Workers work more than one job but cannot afford to pay rent, afford food and medication. That's just general. So in this working class is being divided directions. So they're trying to blame the immigrants. Okay, immigrants and people of color in general. But although he doesn't say people of color now, but implication is clear that if you can divide it into white and non-white workers, then you can use them one against the other. Um, in 1916, there was a similar crisis in Europe, but then two world wars were fought, which destroyed a lot of overaccumulation of capital, which is also the current crisis of capitalism, in my opinion. So by 1945, capitalism had again do production with high enough profit rate because the profit rate drops over time as capital accumulates. But unlike 1916, when workers in Russia, Germany, France, and Britain, and the United States also, to a large extent, were led by communists and organized in large trade unions, today workers in the US are unable to use the trade unions because trade union organized workers are less than 10%. And so they are unable to put the pressure on the capitalist class. And which makes most of its profit overseas. So that's how I see the background to the crisis. The class struggle, even for the reform, therefore, is very difficult. Trump has promised to bring industries and well-paying industrial jobs back to the US, and at least a section of the workers can return to the good old days he has promised. That's what MAGA is. But this in reindustrializing of US, in which tariffs will be high for imported goods, workers believe Trump will succeed. A lot of workers actually believe that. However, this will not bring many well-paying jobs. They can bring capital, some capital back, but because automation will further increase using artificial intelligence, one more level of automation, one higher level. So therefore, the amount of well-paying jobs will not increase in appreciably. Somebody has calculated it's only about 1%. So I do not think the oncoming change can be resisted or resisted to any great extent in the economic sphere. And to the extent can be, it will require a great deal of organization and sacrifice. Resistance to expulsion of immigrants is part of the resistance. I hope others here will be able to tell us what is happening in that struggle more than I know. Uh, what this is my final point. What we need today is a new vision of society that will capture the imagination of the vast majority of US working population. And with that, I will stop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Raj. Next, I'm going to ask Sharon if you would give your unmute and give your brief remarks. Let's make sure you can do that. Okay, go ahead, Sharon, unmute.
Thank you. Um, sorry. I just have a small contribution to this discussion. And I agree with most of what Raj said and what Alan said. There is a rising tide that of resistance, but it's largely spontaneous or organized by groups that are, however quiet it's kept, associated with the Democratic Party, in particular, Indivisible. So they have done some good things. They have called people out onto the streets, and that's a good thing in locally. But we should not accept that or passively accept that they are the leadership of the resistance. So what I think is that we need we should frame this as building a popular front. A popular front means everybody who can possibly be united against the main danger, which, as Raj laid it out, the power that is sought by the oligarchy. And what does the Popular Front mean in Marxist-Leninist terms? So our recent elders and ancestors define that as a broad movement centered by a united front, which is a united, that is to say, unity of the left, of those who are clear about that the main danger is capitalism. And we have a long way to go before the left in this country is united. But I think there is some progress along those lines, and we should continue it to build. And groups like this very occasion is part, in my opinion, a part of building unity on the left, but through dialogue. And we're only a small part, but much more discussion needs to happen. And we are modeling the kind of discussion that is a good thing. Some people make a distinction between united front from above or below. And I think that is valid to look at. So below means that ordinary people who are Marxists get to discuss, and that's what we're modeling. That it doesn't just come, the unity is not just from organization to organization at the so-called top. And there still needs to be, in my opinion, a lot more understanding of what the ruling class is doing and who's on which side. Because when you're building a popular front, and there will be a piece of the bourgeoisie that doesn't go along with the majority of them, and we might even be able to bring them into the popular front, but only if we understand what's going on in the bourgeoisie. And that's what I was trying to raise with Bellamy Foster last week, which I don't think he answered very well, but or with enough specifics, I guess. So who would we unite in this popular front? I think we have to, in particular, talk about labor. So it's true that organized labor is only a small percentage of the working class, but they have a lot of resources. And they're headquartered in Washington, and they have a lot to say, especially within the Democratic Party. And we need to peel away as many unions as we can to a more broad resistance. The petty bourgeoisie, which is being smashed down into the working class, they are allies. Members of the petty bourgeoisie are allies. Churches and other and moral, spiritual organizations, whose leaders are appalled about the kidnappings and the brutality and the cruelty that's going on. We can unite with them. Of course, representatives of the marginalized groups that are fighting against racism, we need to take leadership from them, and also see them as very important in building the popular front. I'm sure I'm leaving out categories, but the point is that we need to unite everyone who can possibly be united and keep our vision on building that resistance, the broadest resistance possible. I think I left out third parties, and I didn't mean to, the Green Party and other parties, the Working Families Party. They are very important as well. So we need to unite everyone who can possibly be united as we at the same time build the left.
Okay, next is Mehmet, if you would unmute and go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to share my screen if that is possible. Just took some notes and I would like to share that. And here you go. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. So we had discussions in the last couple of sessions on what's happening in the United States and fascism as we talked about them. And there were two different approaches to it. And the discussions that happened afterwards, we were discussing whether we do have fascism or not, or what really is fascism. So I'm going to go with this, trying to understand what actually fascism is. And here I have some pictures showing that, fascism is the way it is seen doesn't have to be all dark and black and it's so awful. But the people who lived during those times actually didn't even notice it. This is very important. The reason is that people expect fascism in the United States to be so dark and, like you open the curtains one morning and, oh my God, it's fascism. No, fascism comes like this. You think that's the normal day, daily life goes on, but actually fascism is there. So I went into trying to define fascism. There's so many of them. So I'm going to kind of summarize them, just showing them here so people, if they watch the video later on, they can look at the details. But fascists defined it differently, different kind of fascists, like Franco was defining it as a reaction against the state of things created by the defeat and by the abdication and the despair that followed it. So it's a psychological. But then Marxists also defined it differently. And as Trotsky was saying, so he's coming to the accepted definition of fascism, but he is still looking at the movement as a petit bourgeois movement. And but in the end, after he died, there came some definitions that he had used, which was more to the point. And Otto Bauer is an Austrian Marxist, and he really, like the others, thought that petit bourgeoisie was defining the essence of fascism. There were many people like Heinheimer and everybody, but then comes the Bulgarian Marxist Dimitrov, and he is defining it in a different way, which today I think is the accepted way. And he's looking at the class basis of fascism and the changes that happened in the age of imperialism. So he is looking at things more from the current class base and with the imperialism and the dominance of the monopoly finance capital. So he defines it as the open terrorist dictatorship of the most reactionary, most chauvinistic, and most imperialist elements of finance capital. As you can notice, the previous definitions did not have these. And so we can go into Clara Zetkin as well. I think is very close to what is in reality today also, is that she goes into saying an expression of the decay and disintegration of the capitalist economy, and as a symptom of the bourgeois state's dissolution. I would like to call the attention to this dissolution. Several other Marxists have noted that incorporated this dissolution or the disassembly of the bourgeois state being central to the fascist movement. But we are going to see some contradictory elements, especially in the United States. So these are the elements of fascism. But I would like to emphasize that fascism is the power of finance capital itself. But something changed from 100 years ago when fascism was just being born, is that in this 100 years, the imperialism advanced, which means that, as Raj mentioned, you know, the monopoly finance capital that had started the imperialist, you know, characteristics is now the most powerful and the most, you know, they have taken control over it in imperialism and in our world. So, United States, in my previous talks in ICSS, I mentioned many times that there is a movement to make, not becoming, but make the United States a third world country. This is because after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, United States has had no some other country that the people can compare it to. So once the Soviet Union disappeared, then there was no need for the people to receive benefits of capitalism, like the middle classes and the working class. This is for a picture I took in Dyer, in Gary, Indiana. These houses are completely empty, everything broken down. The whole town is like that, the whole town. And they are selling these houses for $1 each. If you have $1, you can go and buy a building like this with the promise that you are going to fix it up. It's a devastation. This is the third worldization of the United States. And here is the downtown Gary, Indiana. Once I had heard the songs and you know, Johnny Cash about Gary, Indiana, and we went there in 1981. It wasn't this much bad, but it was pretty close. This is downtown Gary, Indiana. And so here's a restaurant, all boarded up and so on and so forth. The entire town is dead, completely done. So the poverty, being a third world country, poverty is on the rise. And as you can see, when in 2013, they changed the way that they did the surveys to affect the statistics. But actually, it is now much worse. And here is another home. People have just left it as it is and went elsewhere to work. And this is from West Oakland, where homeless camps are. This is a country that is supposed to be the leader of the capitalist camp. And now that the pressure is on the working class and the middle class as well, the capitalists, the finance capital, is actually having a paranoia of a resistance that could happen and that could jeopardize them. But it's not something that happened with Trump. I must emphasize this, that what we are calling fascism or the rise of fascism, the coming of fascism, Trump is only just one face in it. Even in 1973, Lippmann was projecting that the way that things are going had to lead to something, either authoritarianism or fascism. And the system is under tremendous pressure to stimulate the economy. We are seeing that the government is doing nothing but printing money. And with this, I was even shocked to see that in 2022, the 40% of US dollars in existence right now were printed in the last 12 months of that year alone. And now, since 2020, US has printed nearly 80% of all US dollars in circulation since 2020. To put that in perspective, at the start of 2020, we had around $4 trillion in circulation, but now there is nearly 19 trillion in circulation, 375% jump in 3 years. This is unprecedented. So with this, of course, comes the inflation.
Just another minute or so, Mehmet. Go ahead.
Okay. The inflation hits the banks worst, and the banks will not pay for it. So they have to bring the recession, which means that the working class has to shoulder the cost of this inflation. And in order to but this may not be taken well by the working class, so they expect resistance. And in order to do that, of course, there's going to be fascism to prevent any kind of resistance coming around. So they bring up Project 2025, and with that there is as they say, the hidden hand of the market will never work without a hidden fist. McDonald's cannot flourish without McDonnell Douglas, the builder of F-15, and the hidden fist that keeps the world safe for Silicon Valley's technologies is called the United States Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. Well, that's one feature of fascism, to militarize everything and to keep things in order. Project 2025 is a comprehensive change that is happening. And one of the things is that it is giving tremendous benefits to the banks, again, to the monopoly finance capital, which is in charge of fascism and imperialism as well. And together with that, they are just bringing, much better conditions for the businesses as they take away from the people. But fascism, as the new colonial countries have experienced all their life, now the chickens are coming home to roost, and fascism is coming here because of the crisis of capitalism that's happening. And in order to resist it, people, yes, I agree with both Sharon and Raj that we need to resist this. But in order to resist it, we have to have a working class party at the center of either united fronts or the popular fronts that we may support it. But without a working class party that is able to shoulder this, that is able to resist fascism in any way that is possible, any means that is necessary, if they cannot do this, unfortunately, we are going to lose. And I'll leave it at that, and maybe we'll continue with the discussions later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Gene, if you would unmute.
Okay, unmuted, and here I am. Okay, well, thanks to the other commentators. I certainly agree with them, and there are very important issues here. But I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about what's going on in one city, namely New York City, which I have a lot of affection for. I lived there for 4 years while I was a graduate student at Columbia, and also worked for the welfare department, during which time I was robbed at knife point. But nevertheless, New York's just a great city. I mean, you can jump down in the subways and pop up anywhere in all of New York, and that's just great. But what's happening in New York right now is the campaign of
Zohan Mamdani. Zohan
Mamdani.
Mamdani.
Yes, yeah, I need to work on my pronunciation there. He's a member of the Democratic Party and the Democratic Socialists of America, and he's also the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City, and then the general election will be in November. So he was born in Uganda to his father was an academic, his mother was a filmmaker. They moved to the United States when he was 7. He went to Bronx High School and graduated from Bowdoin College. So he worked as a counselor, housing counselor, and hip hop musician. But then he started campaigning uh, for uh, mayor of New York City, and his platform includes, first of all, support for fare-free city buses, public childcare, city-owned grocery stores, a freeze on rent-stabilized units, and construction of additional units. Um, and he supports increasing the taxes on corporations and those earning more than $1 million annually. He's been sharply critical of Israel's treatment of Palestinians and has pledged to arrest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if he were to visit New York City. And I think Trump has said, well, if he does that, Trump will arrest him. And I'm not sure what will happen there. But he's won the endorsements of of both Bernie Sanders and AOC. So that's happening in New York. I personally have been very uh, excited by his campaign. He represents, I think, a breath of fresh air, young people coming to the fore. He's supported, as I said, by AOC and Sanders, and it'll be very interesting if he does defeat the other candidates and becomes mayor of New York City. Um, but again, what will happen then will be very interesting. As the Chinese say, we will be living in interesting times. So that's what I have to say, and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the program committee wants to say a few words? Nope. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll open it up in a moment for discussion. You can raise your hand by clicking on the reactions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. We're going to do it a little bit more kind of unstructured today because it is a group discussion, and try and we want people to be respectful and address other people's ideas, and let's sort of have a group discussion. This isn't so much of a speaker question and answer as a group discussion. Next week we have a program with Dan Kovalik, who has spoken at Sunday Morning Forum several times. He's a very well-known and popular activist author who will be speaking on the war against Iran. He wrote a book about this about 4 or 5 years ago that detailed the lead up to the war, gave a lot of very useful information. If you are interested in attending next week's program, go to our website at ICSSmarks.org and sign up for notifications, and you'll receive emails every week with a program description and a link to the program. Okay, with that, what we're going to do is we're going to shift over to opening this up to discussion. And I'm going to start with Steve. And again, I want, if you can address other people's points or whatever, you can certainly, everybody, you can say whatever you want to say on the subject. We want to keep it on the subject, but let's try to make this uh, somewhat interactive. So, Steve, why don't you go ahead and unmute and say your piece?
Thank you. Good morning. I just wanted to make a suggestion based on what Gene just said. I think that everybody, everywhere, should take the platform of the New York City Democratic Party mayor candidate and run for office on that platform. There's nothing wrong with his platform. I read something yesterday from a certain group saying we should vote for this guy. I'm tired of hearing that nonsense. Everybody should vote for him. Period. Why not? Why would you not vote for this program, this platform? I don't care if he's a Democrat. I don't care if he's in DSA. It's a good platform. And he's being attacked because of the platform. So I think people who are on the left should run for office throughout the country, from Seattle to Miami, from Maine to California, on this platform, and make it a national platform for activism. I really doubt. The problem is with all the propaganda being shed about this man, the platform is being hidden. But if 20 people ran the platform around the country, the platform wouldn't be hidden. That's all. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we'll have Richard, followed by Laura. So Richard, please go ahead. Richard Wright, please go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Yeah, uh, as I was listening to this, it seemed to me that I was hearing sort of the same things that we have week after week after week, which is we have an ideological explanation without really much delving into what is to be done. As far as what I heard, Sharon really it came closest to suggesting a popular front, towards which end I posted in the chat something from John Case, who's proposing something similar to that. And the other thing is that I mean, I've been down in Texas organizing. I mean, I spent what 40 years down here trying to organize, trying to and on around Austin, around the state. And I really I haven't heard much as far as what to do as far as how we can communicate with other groups. One of the things that Hobie and I talked about after John Bellamy Foster was I thought it would be really great if John Bellamy Foster could get together with Radhika Desai, who he apparently hasn't heard of, which I'm stunned. But it would be a really good panel, I would think, to hear the two of them compare notes. The other thing is that it seems to me that we have to, we can't, we have to address what I call I'm not just the stylization or identity politics. We have to do something that comes across and unites people across, a common interest. I happen to think that that comes through our class interests. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what that's my opinion. And we should be looking at things that promote things along those lines. The other thing is that we are no longer living in an age where we can say we have domestic politics and we have foreign politics. And I've said this before, so this is nothing new. We really have to start addressing global policies and how when we support the military, when we support the militarization of Israel, how that affects us back here. Okay, so that's just a few comments. That probably left off a few things, and that probably hurt some people's feelings. And I don't know if I should apologize or not, but in any case, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Richard. Next is Laura, followed by CitizenOne. So Laura, please go ahead.
So picking up on what everybody has said, it seems to me that what's happening, as it seems that we so need a united front, and I agree that the real big problem is the oligarchy, all the power in the hands of a few people. But what I'm finding, and I don't know how, what to do about it particularly, but it's like people are becoming less open to debate about the thing that they think is the issue. And just, for example, Dan Kovalik wrote a book called Cancel This Book. So it's the cancel culture. We also had Midwest Marxism, where one young author wrote The Purity Fetish. Do you know, it's where my issue is the issue, and my way of thinking about it is the way of thinking about it. And here's what's wrong with everybody else. But I mean, I'm finding that, for example, people don't want to get together with somebody that's on a different and sometimes nuanced side of anti-Israel or not anti-Israel, anti-trans, anti-freedmen, reparations for freedmen, anti-vax, on one side or the other of Russia and Ukraine, but where I think Sharon's absolutely right that this kind of forum where in the introduction, we're talking about civil, being very civil in our conversation, in our debates, but it seems like there's less and less of that. And if there were one policy that I wish had been instituted over the decades, it's tax the rich. I got to where I didn't care if they flushed the money down the toilet, just get it out of the hands of the people that had so many resources they could chop down any alternative that was trying to sprout up. But here in California, this supposedly progressive state, a few years back, just trying to change Prop 13 so that commercial corporate properties would be assessed at current value, not even touch residences. It was way ahead to begin with, but the money could turn it around. In the last week, it was still like 5 points ahead. And friends of mine who aren't particularly political said, well, that means it'll pass, doesn't it? I go, no, they can get rid of 5 points. And if this wins, the side that I wanted to win, I'll do a cartwheel. Well, I didn't have to do a cartwheel. I'm not sure how much I would have hurt myself if I'd done that. But the oligarchy has so many resources, and divide and conquer is so strong that building a popular front, building up to a general strike, I'd love to be able to imagine that.
Okay, next is CitizenOne, followed by Lucy, and I'd urge people to raise your hand to contribute. Let's get this discussion rolling. So go ahead, CitizenOne.
Yes, first I'd like to tell Laura, I thank you for your comments, but I would like to suggest in response to Dan Kovalich's book and his appearance here at Nebel Proctor, that you read my commentary criticizing Kovalich. The commentary is Cancel Culture Critic Critiqued by me, Joseph Anderson, Berkeley, at the Berkeley Daily Planet. So I would strongly suggest that you read that, Laura, strongly and politely suggest. So once again, the issue of identity politics has been brought up. And I just wanted to note that I think it was John Bellamy Foster last week who incisively pointed out that Black issues are working class issues because of the majority of Black people are working class. And I thought that was a great remark. Also, in relation to cancel culture, in the chat last week, Stansfield Smith pointed out to everyone in response to me, I think the doubly oppressed sections of the working class, women, Blacks, Latinos, are the most militant, are in the vanguard. So he was anti-cancel culture, anti-identity politics. And I don't think he realized that that statement was indeed a form of what many people consider identity politics. But I would say in response to that, I think that Black people should not be demonized by older white male anti-identity politics crusaders, but neither do I want to see Blacks, other people of color, and other minorities romanticized. So, in particular, supposedly a lot of Latinos actually voted for Trump. And certainly not all Black people are going to be in any kind of vanguard. So I wanted to say one other thing, and I'll read this really quickly because Norman Finkelstein has still been marring his reputation among Black intellectuals with his anti-identity politics tirade. So I saw this, and this is not that long, and I will try to keep within my time constraints. I saw this comment post under a video that featured Norman Finkelstein. The comment post was, while Norm's arguments highlight the importance of class analysis, it's crucial to recognize that identity politics is equally significant. Identity politics expresses the unique experience and systemic challenges faced by marginalized groups, which are often overlooked in class-only analyses. Ignoring identity politics serves the interests of the white capitalist patriarchy by maintaining existing power structures and diverting attention from the intersectional nature of oppression. By focusing solely on class, we risk perpetuating the very identities we aim to dismantle. Both identity and class analyses are essential for a comprehensive understanding of systemic issues and for fostering true equity and justice. Also, Kendies, which Finkelstein condemned, even ex-Kendies, stamped from the beginning, provides a powerful analysis of the history of racist ideas used to justify racial oppression. Yes, the book doesn't critique capitalism, but its racial analysis is powerfully important, and the book is well written. Frankly, I don't care what Norm thinks about identity politics. His views on the subject are not insightful to me. And I just want to last say, I never use this term identity politics. So I just want to make that clear because, as I said, it has no standard objective definition, and especially its critics define it any way they want to. Thank you.
Okay, next is Lucy, followed by Gulden. So Lucy, please go ahead.
Yes, what I just wanted to say a couple of rumbling things that just circle in my head. I was listening to Sharon and she mentioned building a party, the need to have a structure. And to me that I think is really key in terms of being able to pull quick action at a point when you need it, when the people need it. And that brought my attention to what this friend of mine from LA is doing, which is he has been working on developing these grassroots one group for like 20 years. And during the raids, he was able to mobilize very quickly and very rapidly, and people went out to the streets and in that area where they're working, they've got support from the city council, the local politicians, they all come to them for support, etc., etc. So these kind of groups and organizations are so critical, in my opinion, I think. But another one that is even better, that is even more important, I think it's, I don't know if Sharon was referring to a Marxist party, I mean a vanguard party, or a mass party, but either one is good. So so that it wouldn't be so spontaneous, there will be some planning that we can have ahead of time. I mean, I don't know. I'm just rumbling, okay? That's it. The need for institutionalizing a structure that can last for a long time, can face struggles as they pop up.
Okay, thank you. And actually, you're one of the few that's actually commented on other people's comments. So thank you for that. Okay, so next is Gulden. Please go ahead.
Thank you for everyone who spoke so far. Obviously, American bourgeois democracy is undergoing changes, potentially experiencing a decline in its quality and stability. comparing 1980s when we came here and the knowledge of the American society before we came here, there are huge changes on how American system is operating. It's so obvious to everyone is democratic performance is declining, such as electoral integrity, political participation, civil liberties, and the rule of law. This erosion of norms can create an environment where democratic institutions are more vulnerable to abuse and manipulation. High levels of economic inequality can exacerbate social divisions and undermine political stability, potentially impacting the health of democracy. Inequality can lead to a sense of injustice and resentment, which can fuel political extremism and distrust of institutions. Therefore, the rule of law is being challenged. This erosion of the rule of law can undermine public confidence in the fairness and impartiality of the legal system. I think the changes are not part of a cyclical pattern in American history, but more fundamental and potentially irreversible systemic changes. Turkish revolutionary Mahir Çayan, who was killed by the government in 1980s, says that fascism is the openly terrorist dictatorship of the most reactionary, chauvinist, and imperialist section of monopoly capital. Fascism is not a form of government, but a form of state. So current American system is not Trumpism, but something more permanent, I think. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Golden. Next is Judith, followed by Janet. So Judith, please go ahead. Unmute yourself. Yeah, you're unmuted.
It worked. Okay. Yes, I would well, we could talk about fascism. Briefly, I go along with Michael Parenti's definition, and which is a class definition, and he one of the things he brings up is who benefits from fascism, and I think we all know the answer to that. Trump. I think Trump is trying to bring about an authoritarian system, and we have to resist. We have to resist him, and we have to do more than resist. We have to oppose him very strenuously. The thing that I wanted to say was, in England now they've just banned the Palestinian Action Group, which is a sabotage organization. They go around just spray painting and preventing the Elbit factory, for the Israeli arms manufacturer, from they. In fact, I think they drove them out of England. Why don't we have anything like that in America? We used to have, during the Vietnam War, we had a lot of Catholic groups. I forget their names exactly. The people that went into the, I think it was the Pentagon, and upset the files, and the Berrigan brothers, and we had stuff like that. Now we have nothing. We have nothing. It's disgusting, and I wish we could address why that is and how it can be changed. Okay, Palestine action. Okay, thank you. All right, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Next is Janet. So Janet, please unmute and go ahead, and there you go. You're unmuted.
Yeah, thanks. I think one of the reasons, in response to Judith, why there isn't such a movement in the United States is because in England, property damage is not as big a deal. It has to do with property and how property is such a major thing in the United States. So let me also talk about a little bit about what Jean was saying about Mamdani. I don't know if you got most of your information from Wikipedia, but so in my opinion, he's probably more to the left than AOC and Bernie Sanders, but I think he's going to eventually be compromised or compromise himself to the Democratic Party, whatever, because he's in the Democratic Party. He's a Democrat. Yes, he has some very good positions. And also, let me just also mention that he is more Indian than anything else. His mother is an Indian American. She was born in India. His father was also born in India, and then he was part of the Southeast Africa Indian diaspora that took place in the 19th century, and his family went to Uganda, and anyway, I'll just stop there about Mamdani. If I were a New York resident, which I used to be, by the way, I would vote for him. And then what is electoral politics anyway? You know, where is that going to get us? Alan, sorry, I think it was Alan who you listed a whole bunch of things that are happening in the United States affecting things. And I don't recall your referring to the rise in the surveillance and censorship state that has been going on. So also responding to Sharon, you're talking about, you said a united front, and then you were talking about a popular front. I don't know what the difference is, and it should be against capitalism, but what replaces it? I think that is important. You know, you can be against a whole bunch of things, but then if that's a negative. So what is the positive? What would replace it? And also many people who are resisting are wedded to capitalism. Many people in this country. And, you know, so resistance to what? The word resistance has been thrown around in this discussion, but resistance to what? To me, it's all over the place. Is it resistance to capitalism, to the oligarchy, to fascism, to imperialism, to war, to Zionism, to genocide, to racism, to repression? And if so, repression by who and what? To the duopoly, to Trump, to reduction in social services. There's resistance to I think that needs to be discussed in length more. You know, what does that really mean? And also what would replace it? And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Next is Norma, and then I will give a chance for example, Sharon to respond in a moment. We'll open this up a little more. But Norma, we'll just go through the first pass at all the people who wanted to make comments. So please go ahead, Norma.
Hi, everybody. You saw what I posted. If you've been able to take the time to take a look at it. And it's pretty much what I have to say. It is a response in itself to the idea that we have nothing, which somebody said. We have nothing. We have the people that stand out called the squad that are supportive of the kinds of things that I've put into my note. Healthcare for all and so forth, which is a tremendously socialist position that we need to support. We have, well, people like Mama.
Mamdani.
Thank you. That are thinking along these lines. I'm suggesting that these people who are clearly part of resistance, who have been maligned by Trump as being worthy of, I don't know, being shot and annihilated and so forth. We have those people, and we have things like PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation. We even have Peace and Freedom Party here in California, where you could call it that 11% of the electorate lives in California. The 11% of the population of this country lives in California. So I just transliterated that. There's a lot of people who could appreciate the offer of having a unity. What's her name? Ayanna Presley sent me that note, which inspired my response to say, yeah, we've got all those people that are elsewhere from the standard position. And well, and we've got, we've got the revolution, the communist revolution that the world has been having war against for 100 years. We've got Cuba. We've got nation after nation throughout Africa rising against their oppression. This is all going on, and we're saying we've got nothing. We have not nothing. We have not got nothing. We have a whole lot. And our position has to be to bring all that forward as much as we can. I've also been, people said, oh, how about voting or electing for what we agree with? And we all know that access to the ballot is incredibly difficult to obtain. So a break-off group that that goes to an alternative party would be of some help to people to organize themselves to be other than the Democrats or Republicans or any similarity of that. You might take a look at the note I wrote if you care and see if there's any element of furthering your own resistance.
Thank you. Thank you, Norma. Next is, I'm going to go back around to Mehmet. So please unmute yourself, Mehmet.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of points. Richard Wright rightfully said that, we are just keep on talking about the same subject. But it is important to pound on that, Richard, because most of the left in the United States don't even accept that we are transitioning to fascism. You have to call something with its proper name to be able to fight against it. this is not just an academic, definitions and, so on and so forth. But the reason why we need to pound on it is that we need to fight it. But you need to know what it is to fight it. Many leftists here in the United States still look at the world as if it's business as usual, nothing else. Oh yeah, Trump will come, Trump will go, and it's not only Trump, but we'll just do. But we saw that that's not the case. Like the PSL is now served with, they are under investigation because it is claimed that they are receiving funds. This is starting with PSL. It is going to come to all the rest. So if the left doesn't even understand that things have changed, things are changing, and it's not going to be like that anymore, like what we had in the bourgeois democracy anymore, then it requires other tools to fight this regime, and resist what is coming up. I don't think that we can only resist in the area of economic democratic struggle. You know that there are three main struggles that go on in the Socialist Party. One is the economic democratic struggles, like the struggles of the black, the women, the environmental, union work. These are all economic democratic struggles. Then there's the ideological struggle. You fight against, ideologically capitalism. You show that it is not working. You put the alternatives there, and this is the ideological part of it. But then the most political part is the political struggle. This is where you fight to come to rule the country. And that determines both the economic democratic struggle and the ideological struggle. So in order to struggle, first we need to understand what we are facing. And it is not business as usual. This is what the left needs to understand and to fight. I'm seeing that there is this resistance to understanding fascism because I think, I may be wrong, but because I think the left is not equipped to fight fascism. They're not equipped. So it's just like, ignoring it or denial that it is there. Because if you acknowledge that this is fascism, it means you have to fight it. But how are you going to fight it? With the tools you have in your hands? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think that we are equipped. That's why I keep on harping on the need for a working class party. And there are parties, as people have pointed to me, but unfortunately, I don't see them as fighting fascism because, as let's say, like the Communist Party USA, I mean, in every instance, they have supported the Democratic Party. How can this be the party that represents the working class? So others are fighting, but they have many contradictions that come up. And there are many demonstrations, and even in economic democratic struggles, there are out there. But for sectarianism, they do not show up. So let's get together for a united front first. Let's get the definitions, united front, and I think Sharon explained that well, is so that we can have a popular front as a broader organization to fight against this. But first of all, let's understand what fascism is. Thank you.
Okay, so actually I'm going to let Sharon go ahead and respond since several people have made reference to her comments. So Sharon, please go ahead.
Well, I would just say that what Mehmet just said about, the last thing Mehmet just said about needing to have a united front in order to center a more broad popular movement is crucial. The united front of the left, in order to center a popular front or a popular movement, if you will, is what is needed. And that means that the left needs to try to unite around a set of points of unity, and we can debate what those might be. I'll just give one example, in my opinion, that the United Front has to include opposition to Israeli colonialism and U.S. support for genocide. That's just one thing of many, right? So that there are people who in some ways are part of the left, have are Marxist even, or claim to be, but they are progressive on everything but Israel. And that would be, in my opinion, a point that, you know, that we would have to take a stand on. But I was really very disappointed to see that some of the demands that were being put forward, a resistance in the hands-off, the slogans around hands-off that Indivisible was putting forward. They had hands-off NATO. Really? That's just pure Democratic Party establishment position. And we cannot accept that as part of the unity that we would put forward for a popular front. But it's open to discussion. Definitely, it has to be much more deeply appreciated. And the thing around, is it identity politics or anti-racist working class politics? You know, that needs to be discussed at much more length, as Citizen asserted. I absolutely agree with that. But the difference between a popular front and a united front. So the united front is the broadest unity of the left that is centering a popular movement. So you could say a popular front organized around a united front at its core.
Okay, we're actually getting close to the end here. We'll wrap it up at 12. So I'm going to go to Richard Fallenbaum, since he hasn't spoken. So Richard, if you would unmute and
Yeah.
make your comment, please
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
think there's a tendency to dismiss municipal or politics. You know, we don't know what the real character of Mandani is, and we'll find out as things go along. But there's a long history of working class resistance, if you will, going through in the municipal area. I think, first of all, of Dennis Kucinich, who was at a very young age elected mayor of Cleveland and waged a struggle, eventually a successful struggle against the banks in Cleveland, and he went on to in Congress and various other things, and various other working class politicians have of various degrees of consciousness and success have waged the struggle on the municipal level. Harold Washington in Chicago, the black politicians in Detroit, Gary, Indiana, Newark, New Jersey, locally, Gene Kwan in Oakland. We could add some other ones, and you know they're not perfect. They were not successful in a certain way, but there was an important there were important struggles, and I think Marxist Leninists who are concerned about the struggle for power need to take those struggles seriously and learn the lessons from them concretely. Thank you.
Okay, again, we're getting very close to the end. I'm going to call on Jean and then CitizenOne, and then I think we're going to wrap it up. So Jean, please unmute and continue.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Yeah, I want to thank everybody here, and particularly I'd just like to comment a little bit. I know our comrade Laura Wells has always talked about the two titanic parties that are leading us into the iceberg of destruction, which is true, and I think that's a good way of putting it. But I also just want to stress that there are real differences between the two parties. You know, we talk about, you know, the Democrats don't do what they say they're going to do, and that's the worst you could say about them. But the Republicans, the worst you could say about them is they do, in fact, do what they're going to do. But I just want to say that, you know, if you look at the Democratic Party, basically, you know, they stand for reproductive rights for women, they stand for union rights, gay rights, a whole series of things that most of us, I think, agree with. And the Republicans don't, you know, are opposed to all of these things. I mean, you talk about Trump and Elon Musk. You know, if workers go on strike, they should be fired, basically, which is against the law. So I just want to just say that there is a big difference between the two parties, and I think we should acknowledge that and so forth. And I would guess I say, although I've run for Congress on the Peace and Freedom Party ticket, I'm currently registered Democrat, for whatever that's worth. Thank you.
Okay, CitizenOne, and then we'll take Judith, and then we'll wrap it up. So please, CitizenOne, let's keep it short.
Sure. So of course I didn't want to hog time the first time that I commented, but I also wanted to read something about identity politics from a housemate of mine who's a white American female that some of you know. And she said, there isn't any consistency in having multiple and important aspects to one's identity, all of which can be things that one addresses as an activist. One may be a worker, but also Black or female or both, for example. All those things lead to specific types of oppression, and people have to address the ones that are the more urgent, life or safety threatening first in order to survive to address the others. For example, a Black worker has to face potential police brutality, redlining, denial of access to capital and jobs, etc., in ways that white coworkers do not. And that's a survival issue that the white coworkers, even if they show worker-to-worker solidarity about the workplace or union, etc., may not help with or may even side with the oppressors about. While workers of all backgrounds may unite over shared interests, the Black, female, gay, etc. workers, asked if being a worker was their primary identity, might say no. They would probably also say that those other aspects of their identity are just as important and do not conflict with their ability to seek shared interest in the other workers. And finally, I would like to say about Bernie, and I'll make this short, I wish I could see Laura still here, but I don't see her. I think my personal opinion is one of the failings of the Green Party in the US is not taking on Bernie Sanders. Not taking on Bernie Sanders as his bait and switch chill role, among other things, to re-corral people right back to the establishment Democrat Party. And one of his roles also is to undercut the Green Party. So he's been going around on his anti-oligarchy dog and pony show filled with nothing but platitudes and nothing to organize disaffected people against the establishment, including the establishment Democrats. So I wish there had been time, and I wish she had been here to respond to that. But I'll put that out there, and maybe next time she will. Thank you.
She's still
Okay,
here.
so next is Judith, and then I'll have Laura after Judith. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Judith.
Hi. Okay, so we talking, do we want to reform the situation to have like a near Rooseveltian conditions prevailing again in the United States, or do we want a revolution where the power is taken away from the ruling class, from the big bourgeoisie, and is given or taken by the working class? And so I see a lot of people talking about how wonderful reform is, and I think that's ridiculous. It's impossible. If the reason why we have a Trump in office now and what he's doing is because the system can no longer tolerate the velvet glove. They've taken that off, and we see the iron fist being revealed. And part of that is because they're, which I don't understand the economics of it, frankly, but apparently the capitalism is in crisis. They're not able to maintain their desirable rate of profit or whatever, and so that's part of it. American hegemony is being threatened by the BRICS countries, and they're doing their best to suppress anything that arises in the East, and to the point of planning a war against China, which is bound to fail. But I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah. So, what is it that we're trying to do? I mean, Norma says we don't have nothing. We do have nothing because all the examples she gave were from other countries, and I pointed out that Great Britain has the Palestine Action Group, which is very admirable, and I've seen what they do, how they break into these munitions warehouses or factories, and we have nothing comparable, nothing like that. But we did have that in the '60s, and the system can't tolerate the velvet glove anymore. It can't tolerate civil liberties. It can't tolerate any of these things. But nevertheless, we have to keep fighting for them and fighting to make people aware of their imminent disappearance. Okay, I'll stop there.
Thank you. Last will be Laura. Please go ahead and respond, and then we're going to wrap it up. So Laura, please.
Okay, just on the point of reform, I've never really understood reform revolution. There are reforms I think that would help revolution, and healthcare is one of them, and another is tax the rich, and if those are called reform, I think they're foundational toward revolution. And so I don't think reform always needs to be used as a bad word. I would just say, I think I'll just read what Janet Coburn wrote. Can there be an ICSS discussion session to specifically come up with a list of points of unity for United Front? I think that's what I was really trying to say before, how hard it is to have, so can we agree on A, B, C, D, E? No, I disagree on F. And I'm not talking, and absolutely racism, sexism, those are totally need to be dealt with. And I understand how people can just talk about class and ignore racism and keep it in place, and ignore sexism, homophobism, all the isms, and keep those in place. I understand that it's a problem to only look at class or whatever, but the point is to only look at one's own issue without looking at how it interrelates with everything else. So it's been a great discussion, actually, and thank you all so much. I'm sure I'm speaking for most of the people on the screen.
Okay, just a quick reminder, you can go to our website at icssmarks.org and sign up for notifications of future programs or make a donation. Next week, we're going to have Dan Kovalek talking about Iran, the war against Iran. Should be a very good session. And I'm going to take the suggestions that people made about things related to points of unity and United Front, And I want to try to focus the discussion. I'm going to propose that we have a program pretty quickly on the New York Mondani candidacy and what we make of it. And I think we should bring up the bigger questions that kind of got pushed into the background in today's discussion because we didn't have time. So with that, we're going to go ahead and end the session. And I want to thank everybody for
Okay,
participating. We
so
had a good, so go ahead and stop the recording, Raj. And
Alan,
yeah.
I'm going to stop the recording and people can then take the chat down in the meantime while
Yeah.
I stop the recording. Okay.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much, everybody. We had a pretty good crowd today, and we'll continue the discussion. So in solidarity, stay firm, everybody.